Good morning, everyone. It's Lee Henson, president and founder of AgileDad, and it's time for today's episode of the Daily Stand-Up. Without any further ado, let's get started. It's Monday, and I'm excited for a brand new week with you. We've got all kinds of action-packed things planned for you, but today I have a very special treat for you. Many people ask me for an inside look at some of the companies and how they're doing Agile and what type of things they're doing. So I recently came across some information that I am being allowed to share with you. If you've ever had to travel from point A to point B, many of you have used a product, Waze, W-A-Z-E. Waze is an amazing product, and it does everything it's supposed to do, and it's known for its ease of use and for its flexibility and for it just being awesome, right? So I wanted to share with you the 5 ways, no pun intended. Yeah, I see what you did there. The 5 product frameworks that Waze uses in order to be agile and in order to maintain what they were trying to do, and give you a little detail about each one, because Waze is an awesome, powerful tool. There's no silver bullet solution. There's tons of different ways to get things to get maps to go from one place to another on your phone. But what sets Waze apart? What makes it a better tool? And I would argue that these 5 useful frameworks help in identification of the product things they're trying to build. So I'll give you just a brief example of each so that you can dig in and learn more about them. The first one that they use is something called GSM Framework, or Goals, Signals, Metrics. This is most useful for the product managers. And what it does is it allows them to select metrics by solving backward from what they anticipate the North Star is. So they look for the North Star and they track backwards to where they're trying to go to reach the overarching goal. That makes sense. So translated, that would be your goal for the future state of your product if everything you're doing is successful. So you want the goal to be something that you can convey in a real short story or short timeline, almost like an elevator pitch. Then you go in and you identify your signals. This is the evidence of the behavior that indicates that you've achieved the goal. So you want to have some type of specific quantitative metrics as well as the qualitative metrics to make sure you're seeing the signals and that things are happening. Once you get to that point and you can detect and select the signals, then you can focus on metrics that support those things and improve your hypothesis. So overall, a great way for you to do a framework with regard to your product build. The second one is probably the most common one that I've seen, and it has to do with KPI. So it's KPI framework. More specifically, they use something called KPI graph framework. And this is where you can create a graph that shows interrelated nature of all your key performance indicators. So this is most useful for analytics teams and for people who thrive on data, right? So the KPI graph approach is superior to like a tree-based approach because it allows you to have everything broken down, looking at hierarchical, and it's not just cause and effect. It's actual metrics, and you can see a deep understanding of how one thing affects something else within the application. So it shows you behavioral driven design, which is something that I love if you've ever worked with me before. So a KPI graph, for example, could reduce the stress of the employees and show if they're moving the needle, right? They can stop stressing about things that are hard to track or things that they can't see too much or things that aren't being talked about, or the ones that are being talked about too much. It just gives them some type of key indicators based on those things. So that one's a little more complicated, but a tree shows a growth model where a graph shows more of a worldview. So I hope that helps. The third one is probably one of the most interesting ones. It's called the HEART framework, H-E-A-R-T. And this is one that I've heard of before, but I had no idea that Waze was engaged with it. HEART stands for happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. This is for designers. And this is where you're talking about user journeys and doing journey mapping and things along those lines. A lot of people use this in conjunction with the GSM framework. It's about user experience. So they look at those 5 user-centered metrics: happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. And then they compile, a table or a graph with 2 axes. Uh, you have GSM on the live axis and heart metrics are placed on the y-axis. Then you can complete in each box a detailed framework for evaluating how successful your product is. Hard is incredibly impactful because it just helps you think about the user's business goals and it helps you track sentiment. So it's better than just social media and things like that. So are you driving more usage, adoption and retention, onboarding, all those types of things are there. There's a great template out that you can go on Miro and get that Miro, Miro, has a heart template. Many of you have heard me talk about the need, if there's any tool that you get in this modern day remote era, make it Mural or Miro, because those are the 2 tools that are going to save you a lot of time and help you have success. The next one is affectionately called HOSKR Framework, or Hypothesis, Objectives, Signals, and Key Results. This is more for feature development. And this is a hybrid system between OKR and GSM. So the main difference is it connects metrics and goals to a fundamental hypothesis. So you start with fundamental hypothesis, and then you tie your metrics and goals in accordingly. Kind of makes sense. And for those of you who aren't familiar with OKRs, I apologize. I should have done this one first. OKRs are objectives and key results. This is most useful for teams. And this is where you have a goal setting framework and you've got some objectives that matter and you have some results that prove the objective. So I think the trick here, the secret is that many organizations who use OKRs automatically wind up with just this long laundry list of things to do. And then they call it Kanban and then they just, right? So I think what you need to do is you need to make sure you remain focused on outcomes and not outputs. So you're not trying to build features. And I think that you need to make sure that you are also dedicated to WIP limits if you're going to do this, because you need to make sure you have some work in progress limits in place in order for OKRs to be successful. The OKR can easily map to a team structure. So if you have a technical infrastructure team or a separate team that runs independently, it could flow that way, or it could flow across a cross-functional team. So it works either way. And I think that you can do this. And, some people take the time and they distinguish between engineering and product OKRs. Ideally, they should have common objectives. They should be on the same page. But you do have some things that will be engineering specific, obviously. But most of it should be user or business centric. So the goal isn't for every objective to be user centric, right? And if you're using OKRs, there's no golden rule when it comes to how often you should reset or set those. It depends on the stage of your business, whether you're startup or not, your teams and team size, your infrastructure, your architecture. Don't be shy about changing something to see if it works. Part of Agile is the empirical process where we inspect and adapt and we make those fine-tuning adjustments. So I realized this was a longer one today, but I hope you enjoy it. It's got lots of valuable information, lots of awesome things you can do. As always, we encourage you, if you have a question or a topic you want us to cover, send it over to Learn More at AgileDad or Kim at AgileDad, and we'd love to take a look at those topics and see if we can address them. So as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.